well. I wish I could have taken mine several times, but they don't fly very well.
Does anybody on here have a Bernina 880 by chance?
I do. I have an 880 plus. This is Kitty.
Kitty, mine keeps jamming, and I don't know if it's me not getting the thread quite in the hook or the top threading, but it keeps jamming. And
what do you mean by jamming?
The bobbin keeps getting thread caught in it.
Like a nesting?
Correct.
So that would be an upper tension issue. They're very finicky on how you thread them. And so you have to make sure that when you thread it, that slat that's toward the thread, that looks toward the thread, you have to hold that thread back in it as you're pulling it through the upper tension.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah. There's a video on YouTube that I had to find that talks about the threading, and I had issues with that too when I first got my machine last year. But once I learned to hold that thread in that catch area, that big circle, and then just to wait till I heard the plunk or whatever that noise is, and then I pulled my thread through the tension, it did much better. But when I just went bump, thread it never got caught in the tension disc correctly.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I'll try it.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Another thing too, if you floss it when you're threading it, that kind of makes sure it gets in the tension disc.
Well, with the 880s, we're not supposed to put the floss through them.
No, what I'm saying is you run it back and forth. I have an 880 plus. And if you, as you're threading it and you pull it and then have your left hand and right hand and kind of floss it a little bit to make sure it's in the tension disc up in the machine, not in the bobbin. Because if your tension is, or your machine is not threaded on top properly, it's going to mess up your bobbin.
Yeah, it'll mess it up, yeah. I don't know. I was told not to pull it backwards and not to floss it by my tag, so I don't do that. So everyone's got their own little tech guy, I guess, but since I want to keep my warranty in place.
When it sews beautifully.
Beautifully.
And I love my machine. I'm not ready to say, you have mastered me. I will master you.
Can anyone hear us?
Pardon? We hear you.
You do?
Yes.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you, Scott.
Hello, good morning. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
Thank you.
Okay,
I really
you're good?
appreciate it. Yep. Thanks
Give
so
me a minute
much.
just to make sure.
Okay, now everybody remember to mute yourself so we hear only Dana. Thank you.
All right, I'm just letting someone else join us. So just so you know, I am going to mute everyone. Actually, I'm going to start right now. I will be giving you time for questions. And I ask that if you do unmute yourself to inject a question, if you would please go back and mute yourself in case I don't happen to notice that you have unmuted yourself. It just helps that when you're watching the recording, which I did not realize last week at all, anybody who made a little motion, a little movement, your picture came up big on the screen and everybody lost my picture. And so we were looking into a lot of people's, sewing rooms. So hopefully we'll have that taken care of today.
Just a quick question. Is there a mute button for husbands?
I don't think so. I don't think so. That's funny. Okay, so welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Home for the Holidays. And I know that several people showed me pictures of their cards. I was really very excited that you actually finished and it looked really nice. I'm trying to get this. I'm trying to put the camera so it looks like I'm looking at you, but I can't seem to tip it such that it's. Oh, well, I guess you're going to have to sort of look at me kind of looking down because I can't seem to straighten it out. Maybe let's try this. That'll do it either. I'm doing my best. I am looking at all of you though. Okay. So there were a few questions that came up over the week, and I do want to take the time to address them because you may have the same questions even if you didn't answer it. So first question that someone asked me, actually this was from last class, the time before you guys, someone asked me where to find more different quilt fills so that you can have some choices in your cards. And my answer to that is that I create these quilt fills for my classes. I make sure that they are exactly the right size for the template. And Cards 201, which is coming up on May 17th, has 3 new quilt fills in it and 3 new templates. By template, I'm talking about the embroidery design that has the candle wicking around it. Okay, that is a template. This is an applique template. The Peltex is, oh, it's upside down, is your applique. Okay, that's your fabric is the Peltex. But this is the template that has the candle wicking on it. So there's 3 new quilt fills and 3 new templates in Cards 201. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about was Peltex. Okay, when Peltex comes on a bolt, it's 20 inches wide, and I have cut off 7 inches. Okay, I want you to notice, I guess I'll look at it this way. You see how it's got that little arc in it? That's just because Peltex is very stiff and it's been wrapped tightly around a bolt. But it's nice that it has that arc in it because where you see the arc, the top of the mountain is the right side of the Peltex. Okay, if I were to turn this upside down and now it sort of looks like a smile here, then you would see, oh, we have 2 people waiting to get in. Thank you. Sorry, 2 more people were waiting to get in. I didn't notice them. Okay, ladies, for the 2 people who joined, you didn't miss much. I just welcomed everyone back, and I'm going through some important things I think you should know. So this is Peltex that comes off the bolt, and you'll see that I've got it kind of like it's a valley here. That means this is the wrong side. So when you cut your pieces of Peltex, and here I took that 20-inch piece, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces here. Actually, I've got a 5th one. Oh, no, I don't. I've got 4 pieces right here. And you'll see that this is the top of the hill. This is the right side of the Peltex. So I'm going to flip them all upside down to the wrong side. And I'm going to take a marker, and I'm just in one corner somewhere. I'm going to put a dot. This is a sign to me that this is the wrong side where you see the dot. So whenever I cut them all up, I will line them all up and put my dots on them so that I know that this is the wrong side. Then you can use it exactly as it is with that little curve in it. This is the right side now. But if you would like to, you can take it to your ironing board. And I usually do it upside down on the wrong side. There's my dot. I will lay a piece of fabric over the top as a press cloth, and we're just going to pretend that this is my iron right now, and I'm going to have it on low heat, not very hot, and I'm just going to quickly give it a steam, okay? And it will lie poker flat. Let me see if I can find one that has been pressed. Here it is. It lies perfectly flat. Okay, so you certainly can do that. It isn't necessary, but if you would like to, because you want yours to lie perfectly flat, you certainly can do that. Take it to your ironing board, but remember low heat because Peltex is a synthetic fabric, and that means it's made of, I don't know, polyester something or another's. And you don't want to get it too hot because you don't want to melt or misshapen it in any way. Okay. Valerie said that she bought some extra Peltex and she cut it and put it under something heavy, but the curve did not relax. It won't. It's kind of in there to stay until you give it a little shot of steam. All right, let me put that away. Okay, next thing. Someone asked me why, when we're making our card, why is the first thing we put on our sticky stabilizer the Peltex? Why aren't we putting the card on first and then the Peltex? Every single, I gotta turn my phone off. Every single one of my classes has a different technique. And the technique for this class is to be able to put very dense designs, lots and lots of stitches. I would say probably don't go past 60,000, but you certainly can be successful if you are going to stitch something that's that special for someone in particular. Okay, so we're stitching on the Peltex first because the Peltex can take that 60,000 stitches more than the watercolor postcard can. Chances are, if you're going to stitch 60,000 stitches through your watercolor postcard and the Peltex, you're probably going to get some warping, and it's not something you can straighten out. And that's why I don't do it in this class. But in some of my other classes, you may see me do that, to put on the watercolor card first, but not for this class. Okay. All right, now, let's just say, and I don't know if this is any of you, let's just say that you were stitching your card happily last week, and by accident, I told you the commonest problem is that people will accidentally stitch the candle wicking before they have removed or trimmed their Peltex, okay? And you notice it, you've gotten this far around, you notice it and you say, oh my gosh, now what can I do? Okay, I'm gonna show you, it's very easy. I have a paperback book, and its job is just to let me flip my my hoop upside down, and I've got some stability because I'm pressing on the book. Okay, it's up. I don't want to press on just the hoop because there's nothing under it, so I leave my book there. You'll notice that this part I actually stitched with white as my bobbin thread, and then I switched because I wanted you to be able to see it. Let me see if I can get a close up. Let's see if I can. And it's a little bit closer. Okay, I'm going to take my seam ripper. This is very easy to solve. Don't really get upset about it. The orange is my top stitching. I'm actually going to cut under all the orange stitches. You can just slide your seam ripper right through it. If you get good at it, which means you probably made a mistake or two, it's really not that difficult, and not to worry about it, and don't get angry with yourself for doing that. So I slid it on one side of my candle wicking. Now I'm going to go to the other side of my candle wicking, and I'm on the orange stitches. You can do the blue stitches too, but it's real important that you do the orange stitches so that we can remove them. Really doesn't take too long. It's annoying and it's a little messy, but it's not too bad. Okay, then you're going to turn it right side up and place it on your table, and you're just going to tickle these stitches and see what you can get out. I once had a whole group of people stitching cards at once. It was their very first experience at cards, and there's always somebody who, makes that little mistake. And I had them for 15 minutes at a time because it was a kind of a small card. And even though, somebody would make a mistake, we were able to fix it and they were able to finish their card. So you just have to work at it a little bit. And like I said, it is a little messy. You got threads all over. And you would not see this blue here if I had used white stitches. You just go from the front and from the back and pull that all out. And once you've got it all out, I'll just do a little bit of it here. Once you've got it all out and all you can see is your tack down, then you'll take your little scissors and you'll trim. Once that's all out, you'll just trim it. Make sure you don't get the watercolor postcard, you'll go all the way around just as you always do, and then you'll put it back on the machine and you will stitch, and it stitches, even though, let's see if I can show you the holes. Can't cut that way, I'm left-handed. So you can see here is part of the area where the mistake was, and don't worry about those holes, just pull out all the threads, and when you put it back on the machine, it will stitch right in all those holes, and you will never know that you made the mistake. Only you will know. And if you don't tell anybody, no one else will know. Okay, so I'm gonna just put this aside. All right, put this away. All right, next thing, someone told me that they were doing the hyacinth that we talked about last week. We either talked about the hyacinth or we talked about the tulip. But here's the hyacinth, and her question to me was, when she stitched the hyacinth, it was so stitch dense that it cupped her Peltex. I'm not sure if she was talking about if it just cupped her Peltex or if it cupped her Peltex with that once it was on the watercolor card. It really shouldn't. You'll notice that if you look in your instructions, it does tell you that this much, just the hyacinth, the picture design, is like 30,000 stitches. Okay. I did add the quilt fill behind it, so that added even more stitches, probably about 32,000. And then with the template, might be another 1,000 stitches. So it might have been 33,000 stitches. Okay. You will notice on mine that this is totally flat. If I had stitched 30,000 stitches without the quilt fill, that's when the edges will tend to lift up a little bit. Okay. I don't know if that's what she's calling cupping or not, but if you use anything over 20,000-25,000 stitches, use the quilt fill and you will never have any of that. That quilt fill tacks the important part of your Peltex right to your sticky stabilizer. Now I'm stitched my 60,000 stitches. I just want to let you know there was one stitch. Sometimes older designs, when they finish, they go to the center of the design and they will do a tack down. Why that happens, I think it's from old software, but there was one stitch that it's kind of a long stitch, about ½ an inch long. I'm trying to pick it up so you can see where it was. There's a purple stitch right here. So what I do is I go under it, I clip it, and then I will hold my tweezers up in the air and snip it nice and close. Okay, and that's how I handle all of my jump stitches. Okay, I know they also sell a little tiny tool. I think it's called a side hopper. And it's sort of like one of these, a little squeezy tool that is just a little bit tinier with a little tinier blade to help you get under jump stitches. So I just wanted to show you that. So this one is nice and flat. Now, watch what happens when I take it off of the sticky stabilizer. I chose to do the oval in this one just to show you the difference between the rectangle and the oval. So I'm going to lift it up. I've got quite a bit to lift up. I'm going to put my finger on the sticky and I'm going to begin the tear away. I keep my finger on the sticky, the Floriani Perfect Stick, and I'm going slowly all the way around. And your goal is to leave the rest of the sticky there. Don't pull it off. Just go around a little bit at a time. Maybe you're only pulling 1/4 of an inch off at a time as you go around, but always keep your finger on it. And you know, if you're having to tug too hard, you're trying to pull too much at once. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to show you that now that I have pulled it off, you'll see it's not flat anymore. However, the part that is stitched is perfectly flat. We don't have to worry about the part that you're seeing here that's not flat, because that's the part that's going to be torn away. So let's see here. So we've got some sticky tearaway left here. When you do the rectangular template, you will notice that you only have about 1/4 of an inch all the way around of the sticky. And someone said that they were having difficulty getting their postcard to stick. So let me find the postcard. There we go. Because of the nature of an oval and having all this extra sticky, you will not have any problem with the oval because you've got this much sticky to stick it to. So I'm going to put it in the card placement line. Remember, since I'm using one of the watercolor actual cards, you're going to have that little bit of space that it fits perfectly the 5-inch direction, but in the 7-inch direction, you're going to have a little bit of space here, a little bit of space up here, and you're going to center that card in the space. All right. So now it's going to be stuck. However, if you did the rectangle, I'm going to actually burnish it down nice and hard. If you did the rectangle and you're worried that it isn't going to stick, especially because you're using the watercolor cards and you're cutting them, then you're going to go grab yourself some white medical tape or OESD tape. This is paper tape. It's white. You can buy this at the dollar store. It's perfect. And if you're worried that something's not going to stick, take and put 2 rows of this medical tape. It sticks beautifully. Lay it down. You're going to flip it back over. You notice I only finger touched it. Now I'm going to push it on. Now there's no way, even if you have no sticky left, there's no way that this is going to pop off. So I wanted to show you that. And then you would lay your piece of Peltex right over the top. And if you are inclined to use tape, you certainly can. You're putting it directly in that watercolor, over the watercolor card, and you're going to put a little piece of tape on at the top and the bottom just to hold it in place. You don't really have to have it on much, and you only want it on about 1/4 of an inch because you don't want the candle wicking to get stuck in the tape. This is just a vehicle to hold it in place till you get it under the machine and begin the candle wicking around. Don't forget that there are 3 parts to every applique. The first one would have been the applique placement, and you can stitch it on here. But remember, I told you it really doesn't matter whether you use that or not, because our applique, our piece of Peltex, covers the entire space. So if you want to skip one step, you can skip the applique placement line and just do the second little straight stitch oval, which is the applique tack down. Then don't forget to trim, and then you do your candle wicking. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. Number 6. Okay. Number 6 is about color keep topping, or OESD's product is called Top Cover. I want you to know that there are some times when you might want to use a colored quilting. All right. I really prefer to use white quilting in the background, but let's just say, for instance, that you really wanted to put a colored quilting in the background. I will caution you that your white snowman, or if you have anything else on your card that maybe you have white flowers or whatever, the green lines will be seen right through the middle of your snowman, unless you use a product like Top Cover or Floriani's Color Keep Topping. It comes in white. Top Cover has a package that comes in, they've got black, tan, and white all in the same package. And you see this one has multicolored. It's got kind of like rainbow colors, yellow, blue, red. I think there might be an orange in there. But there are several of each of those sheets. There's, let's see, they are 8 by 9 inches here. The Floriani product here was a great big sheet of it. It is 54 inches by a yard. And this product, and I used white, is going to save you from seeing right through your snowman, seeing the green lines running through. So if you decide that you want to use a strong color, this one has had color keep topping underneath it. That's why you can't see the red, even though this is gray, but white or gray, light gray, you would have seen the red lines running through had I not used Top Cover or Color Keep Topping. Again, here's another one. I never actually finished. This was a demo for class. I'm using the Color Keep Topping or the Top Cover. One thing I don't like about using colored quilt fills is I don't think it's easy to read the words that you might want to put on for a sentiment. I think it gets a little confusing. And I also think using it in white quilting, helps your design to shine through rather than the quilting in the background. Here's another one. You can see that the words are just, a little harder to read because of the confusion of the quilting. I want to caution you, you might want to think about using, hey, I've got some variegated threads. I would caution you against it. Many variegated threads have a kind of a white color in them, and so when you finish, it looks like part of it is quilted and part of it is not. I don't think that's a really pretty look. I guess the choice is yours. If you decide that you do want to use a colored quilt fill in the background, I would suggest that you stick with a very pastel color. The pasteler it is, the better. Okay, it won't, it won't try to be the star of the card. Another way to use Top Cover or Color Keep Topping is when you are stitching on a darker background. This snowman has had Color Keep Topping underneath it. This one has not. You can see that my white stitching is looking a little gray. because of the blue, the dark blue that is behind it. So the Color Keep Topping, the Floriani product called Color Keep Topper, is really important to put under certain things. All right, I'm going to put that aside. Now I'm going to show you the one I want to show it on today. Okay, so here we are. I stitched out one of the last designs in your stitch outs, where the kind of patriotic designs are, and you will see that this design has 3 roses, and they were meant to be in different colors, and it's got some stars that sort of makes it patriotic. But guess what? I want to use the roses in a different way, and I do not want to stitch these little stars because I don't want it to be patriotic. I want to use it for a birthday card. So I did each one of the roses in the same color, and this is my top cover. It's actually 2 layers of top cover because I stitched in kind of a medium pink, the quilt fill, and I don't want it to show through because I wanted to use kind of whitish, beigeish flowers. There's a white, beige, and the darker that goes around it, and we've got green leaves. So I didn't want any of the pink to show through here, so that's why I have auditioned. I laid down first one piece of Color Keep Topping, and I looked to see, I don't know if you can actually see it or not. Let me try to get it up closer to you. You can very lightly see that through, but it gets better when you add another layer. So that's why I have 2 layers here. The first thing I did was, of course, the quilt fill in that pink. Then I began my design. I just laid this down and began stitching just according to the color chart. But I did, let's see, the first 2 are greens for the leaves, and then 3 and 4 are the stars, those little tiny stars. And guess what? I skipped right past those because on my birthday card, I don't want any stars. And then I continued on with the rest of the colors. All right. And when I was finished with that, I pulled this back down. I stitched out my happy birthday. At the bottom, I put Paula's name because it's going to be for her birthday card. And now I'm ready to tear this off. You'll see it's very easy. I'm going to tear 1 layer at a time off. And you just pull gently. It peels right off. And I'm going to do one side. And if any pieces don't come out, I use a tweezers to pull the little bits off. And then I will do the second layer. Actually, this is very easy to pull off, so I'm actually going to finish pulling off both layers at once. And I just want you to notice that you cannot see any of the quilting background, the quilt fill, through my roses, even though I used very light colors. All right, so this is a good idea. And now I would be, of course, trimming my Peltex, and then, no, wait a minute, no trimming. I have to pull it off because my card's not on here yet. I will be pulling this all off, and then I will put my watercolor card on. Don't forget, once your watercolor card is on, if you want to put a couple of pieces of the tape across, you can do that. You wouldn't see any of this because it would be the watercolor card. And continue on with your card. Okay, so let me put that aside. Okay. These go in the Color Keep. So sometimes when you are stitching something, maybe you have maybe you've chosen to put fabric down. for part of your card, maybe you've gone to cards 201 where we actually do use some fabric on the cards, and maybe you're going to stitch over the top of it, but the color of your fabric or the print of your fabric is going to show through. That's what Color Keep Topping is for. All right, you want to block out whatever the print is, whatever the quilt fill is, whatever behind something. When you want to block something out, and that's why it comes in multiple colors, because sometimes maybe you're doing a black penguin and you want to make sure that it really looks black, you'll use black. Maybe you're doing a blue star and it's all fill stitch and you want to make sure it stays blue, and you'll use the blue color. These are really handy to have. And pretty easy to use. Just another step. Okay. All right. So last week I did not get a chance to tell you how do you begin your second card. I know it's written in there, and I know you were able to read that, and some of you did create your own cards. So you've got your hoop with your cutaway stabilizer in it, your heavy or medium weight cutaway stabilizer in it, and you've got your window already cut. So if you were to follow your instructions in your instruction pack, you will see that step 1 and step 2 are the steps that created this window. And so you can skip step 1 and 2, and you will begin your second card with step 3. And step 3 is to peel the paper off of your Perfect Stick tearaway, flip your hoop over, finger press it, on lightly. Then you're going to flip it over and you're going to burnish it down. That's step 3, and you continue on from step 3. One thing I want to remind you that when you put your designs on your machine, you will always do that. I gotta get rid of this close up. Let's see here. They're non-normal size. So when you go to your machine to add all your designs together on your machine, you are still going to add the card placement line, even though you do have it already on your window. You do want it on your machine so that you can see the parameter of your whole card. So when you actually are going to put your hoop on and begin your card, you are going to skip the first step, which is the card placement line, which would have done just what you see on here. We don't need it, and so you're going to skip that step, and your first step would be either the quilt fill if you've chosen to use it, or if you've chosen not to use the quilt fill, you will begin your OESD design, or whatever design you choose, directly onto your Peltex. All right, let's see. Cover all of that. Okay, so now let's pretend you've got your hoop, you've finished your card, and now, oh my gosh, you need your 5x7 hoop for something else. Okay? What do I do now? I don't really want to take my window out. You can. So here's what I do. I'm holding my hoop the way that it goes into the machine. I'm going to write top up here. You can see that. Let me write it darker. I write top at the top of my hoop. And I'm going to take and I'm going to trace the inside with a pencil of my hoop all the way around, and this is going to guide me for putting this piece of stabilizer back in my hoop if I need to use this for something else. So here we go. I'm going to pop it out. I'm going to put this aside. I actually try not to squish it because it does have that nice dent in it where it fits into the hoop. So I'll put it aside. I will hoop my hoop with some other stabilizer and do whatever I need to do. And I'm finished with my hoop now. I want to do another card. And so I will put my piece of stabilizer back in, and I try to kind of nest it in there, and making sure the top is at the top. And then I'm going to put my hoop, my inner hoop back in, and I'm looking at those pencil lines, and quite honestly, I just nailed this. It's absolutely perfect. I'm going to tell you that you don't have to be absolutely perfect, because here's what you're going to do. You're going to be taking this to your machine with no perfect stick, nothing. You leave the window open. In a color, I used black the first time I stitched my card placement line. You can be a little bit off, it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to take maybe orange thread my machine, and I am going to stitch from the beginning the card placement line right on this over the top of the black. I'm going to pretend the black isn't there, and from now on my card placement line will be orange. Now, when I stitch this on, it may not be perfectly on the black, but it doesn't matter. When you've got the orange thread on, now the orange is what is calibrated to your machine, and you will follow the orange card placement line, to place your card. You just pretend the black one isn't there. I have certainly done this 2, 3, 4 times, as long as I can remember which color I am using as my card placement line. And sometimes I'll even write up here, orange line, or I'll cross it out and say, now it's the hot pink line, whatever it is. Okay. All right, let me put that aside. Let's see what's next. Okay. Let me put these pieces away. Next, I want to remind you of the coupons that you got, or if you didn't get them, you took your screenshot of it. You've got 20% off Floriani Perfect Stick. You've got 25% off Aurora Sewing Center's Cutaway Stabilizer. This is a medium weight. And this is first time ever they have done this. If you buy 2 either white watercolor cards packs, they have 5 in them, or white or black Peltex, you will get the, when you buy 2, you'll get 1 free. All right, this is the first time they've ever done that. I've never seen them do it, so I think that's not a bad deal. But I also want to tell you, we have upstairs right now in our classroom an OESD event going on. It's actually, it was a 3-day event. And Scott came down and told me that I can let all of you in on the 25% off on any kind of OESD stabilizer if you would like to order, but you do have to do that today, okay? And you only can do any of these orders through calling the store's phone number and ordering it that way. So just wanted you to know that Top Cover is an OESD product, okay? So you could order that either in the white and black mix, white, black, and beige mix, or you can order it in the multicolored. Nice to have them both. But some of the other popular things that OESD has is fusible woven. That's kind of like SPF 101 from Pellon. I actually like fusible woven better. I think it has a better adhesive on it when you iron it on, but that's just my opinion. Also, they have cutaway stabilizer in a heavyweight in a roll. I like to use that as well. In fact, that's what this is right here. This is OESD, really super tough, very strong, heavyweight stabilizer. This I will definitely be able to do 100 cards on the same piece of stabilizer. They also sell Fiberform, which is very similar to Peltex. Maybe you want to try it. Now would be the time to buy it. They also have, I use Floriani's Perfect Stick, but OESD has a product called Stable Stick. It's pretty much the same thing. I actually like Floriani Perfect Stick better, but maybe you like the other brand better. I'm not knocking it. You know, it certainly can be used also. And I know they have Stitch 2.0 or H2O or something like that. It's a water stabilizer. They have all kinds of stabilizers. So if you're interested in any of those stabilizers, all the OESD stabilizers are 25% today only because of the event that's winding up today. So I wanted to make sure I told you that. Put that aside. All right. Okay, so next we've got cardstock. And I know I gave you an education on paper and cardstock, but now I'm furthering your education. I want you to know that cardstock, and these happen to be 8.5 by 11 inch packages. These are 65 weight. This is what I would use for my mats, where I usually use black. You can certainly use colors as well. I have all colors on hand, but I want to show you the difference between these. If you look very carefully at this, you will see in the corner, this one says white core, okay? And this one says solid core. Here's what that means. That means in the solid core, when you see a red piece of paper, it is red through and through. The front, the back, and the middle of this piece of red paper is all red. So when I flip it up on edge, you can see those rainbow colors, plain as can be. If I look on the edge of this, I know this is solid core without even reading the little solid core, all right? This one, which I told you is white core, when I flip it up on its side, I don't see the strong colors that are in here. I see kind of like white. That's a clue that this is white core cardstock. So when I shop for cardstock, I am always looking, is it white core or is it solid core? You don't want the white core, all right? I'm going to put that aside. You do want solid core. Why? Because when we take a piece of solid core cardstock, and here's one right here, my 12 by 12, I'm going to be making my my card, my 5 3/4 by 7 3/4 card from here. When I score it down the middle and I fold it in half, if you are using white core cardstock, it may, because there's such a thin layer of, for this one, blue, and it's white inside, you may, after you fold it on the edge, this one is solid core, you may end up seeing white showing through. It kind of breaks and it shows white through. No one wants their card to have a white edge here and a torn edge. That's why I stay away from white core cardstock, and I will stick with solid core cardstock. All right, so here's an example of Park Lane. This comes from Joann Fabrics. It says solid core. In this package, there are 60 sheets. They are 80 pound. So this is 65 pound, which means it's lighter. I would not choose to use this for my folded card. I will choose to use 80 or 90 weight, which is heavier. And these papers happen to be textured, and I will use those. So just want to show you, it says solid core. That means the color goes through and through. You can see all the colors like a rainbow. okay, that are in this package right now. Solid core is what you want, white core is what you don't want. So now, I want to show you a couple other kinds of cardstocks you're going to be tempted to buy. Here's glittery. This does not come off, but it's really glittery and pretty. Here's another one that's printed and glittery and pretty. Here's one that has like a lighter glitter on it. Doesn't come off, but it's very pretty and shiny. Here's one that is a shimmer, and so you can kind of see the shimmery color. And here are metallics that have a little bit of a shine to them. Okay, so I brought them here today because I want you to know that score tape, that super wonderful tape that I use, hates shiny surfaces. It will not stick to shiny surfaces. So what do you do if you bought some of this and you want to use it? Okay, well, go ahead and make your card just as you always would. And I'm going to show you what you can do with that card. Let's see here, I'm going to get this out of the way. Oh, by the way, just so you know, Joanne Fabrics carries this Park Lane on their online store and in store, and they come. These packages come in many different color combinations. So this was one. This was another. I think there's like 12 different packages with different color combinations. Solid core. All right, so if you want to use something that's shiny, and this one is a shimmer, here's how I will do it. I've got my mat. I've got my tulips all finished. Here's what you will do. You're going to flip your postcard over. You're going to put 2 pieces of score tape on here. I'm going to peel it off. I'm going to center it on the front of my black mat. And it's always easiest to do this while you are standing up. And you're just going to press where you know that tape is. So we know that's going to stick there. But it's not, you know, the sides are not done. It's just temporarily to hold this in place. And you flip this over and you'll put 2 pieces of score tape here. You will peel those off, either use your fingernail or a pin or tweezers, whatever you find comfortable. If you're using a pin, you just slide it along the edge and it'll go right under. Okay, and here is my card. It opens up. This is my shimmery card. Remember, score tape does not like it. I'm going to lay it on in the right orientation. I am looking carefully. I hold it by the middle, and then when I think it's in the right spot, I will give it a press. This is held together temporarily because I'm going to take this. Let's see if I can find it. I have an example of it right here. Here it is. You're going to take it to your sewing machine, regular sewing machine. And if you look carefully at it, you will see a line of stitching going all the way around. I stitched that on with my regular sewing machine, nice and slowly. I start at the folded edge and start at the bottom about 1/8 of an inch up. And I stitch carefully 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of my white watercolor card. Don't try to do this in a fancy stitch. You don't want it to show. You want it to kind of melt in with the white background. Obviously, I've stitched it with white. I probably used about a 80 or a 70 needle. I don't want my holes to be too large. I will pivot at the top about 1/8 inch away from my edge again and go along. Pivot again 1/8 inch away and pivot again. And when I get here, I will go up about an inch. I do not use my thread cutter to cut it. I will hang on to the threads, pull it out, and snip them close. And when I'm finished, I do have a stitching line on the inside, but I don't care. It gives it another look of a handmade card. And I have not matched my thread. It's white thread top and bottom. I don't mind this at all. And that's what I would do to use my shiny or sparkly cardstock. You know, and I would end up having that little rectangle of stitching inside. You're going to open your card up. You're going to slide it under your machine and begin near the fold, the long edge of the fold on the white part, and just stitch up all the way around. And that way you can use sparkly kinds of cards, shimmery kinds of cards, glittery kinds of cardstock like these over here, if you would desire to do so. It's kind of fun, but just another way of putting a card together. So let me put this back. And I can put these back. I have so many things to show you today that my space is crowded. So I absolutely have to put things away today, or won't have any space to work. All right, let me put that one in here. Actually, I think I'll put that one up here. Yep. Okay, I want to show you one other thing about cardstock. Some people might ask, well, you know, they make all that white cardstock, what is it good for? This is an embossing folder from Cuttlebug. It has, let's see if I can open it. Okay, all right. It has a positive and a negative space. You would put a piece of paper in here. You would put it in the Cuttlebug machine and press it, and white core cardstock will come out looking like this. And if it's not perfect and you can't see every single letter, all you have to do is take a little piece of sandpaper, fine sandpaper, and you rub over it, and you will get something that looks like this. That's what white core cardstock is good for. It also, you can tear around something and it gets this kind of decal edge. Sometimes people like to put things like that on their scrapbooking cards. Now, obviously, this isn't looking too wonderful, but that's what people do with white core cardstock. And let's see. Here's an example of a piece of paper, white core cardstock folded, and I scored it with the scoring board. And because that orange layer is very thin, you can see it tore right along that fold. So you don't want to use white core cardstock. You do want solid core cardstock. That away. Okay, I do want to go over envelopes because I know sometimes people get a little confused by envelopes. Okay, I have taken my 12 by 12 sheets. I have used my paper cutter and I've trimmed them down. They are now squares that measure 10.5 by 10.5 inches. I know to use 10.5 by 10.5 because my scoring, not my scoring board, my envelope punch board for a 5.5 by 7.5 inch. I don't know if you can read that. If you go across, it tells you what paper size you need. It needs a 10.5 by 10.5. And it doesn't matter whether you are using a 5.5 by 7.5 inch finished card or you are using 5 3/4 by 7 3/4 finished card. Both cards will fit into the envelope that is supposed to be for the 5.5 by 7.5 inch. All the envelopes from the envelope punch board are a little oversized so that it's easy to slide your card in. But both of these will work. Both those kinds of cards will work. So I have by the way, some paper comes double-sided. And you might run across that sometime. So I could decide whether I wanted my flowers to be the outside or if I wanted this purple to be the outside of my envelope. So I'm going to put that one aside for a minute. Just a reminder on how to make an envelope that is a manual envelope. You will measure from 2 opposite corners, okay? You're going to be working with 2 opposite corners, not the other 2. Just 2 opposite corners. You will measure 4.5 inches, like this. 4.5 inches. I'm lining it up on the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm taking my pencil and I am marking that 1/2 inch mark. I do the same thing on this side, 4.5 inches on that 1/2 inch mark, and I make my mark here. Okay, so I've got these 2. I turn it around to the opposite corner. I do exactly the same thing here and here. Now I've got the marks so that I will be able to place my 5 3/4, and you must use, by the way, I have a couple of little spots on here. This is just a scrap piece. You must use a 5 3/4 by 7 3/4 card for the folding. So even if you're going to make a 5.5 by 7.5 inch card, you're going to make a piece of cardboard that measures 5 3/4 by 7 3/4, just so that you can fold your envelope. You will fold. We'll do the sides first. The smaller triangles, hold onto your card and fold them. You want all the corners to be touching one of those lines that you made. Crease it all the way. These are the sides, they're the smaller flaps. And then you will open it up, fold the top flap down, or the bottom, whichever your orientation is, and this side down, and then you open it up, take the card out, you're finished with the card. You're looking to see where those folds cross each other, and they will make an X in all 4 of the corners. You will make that X, and this wedge that you see that I made right here, this wedge is what we're going to be cutting out. Take your paper scissors, don't use your good sewing scissors. I cut it just a little bit wider than the folded line, just to make a nice so we've got number 4. Okay, there is my envelope. You can, if you want, use a corner rounder punch to corner round these. On my envelope punch board, I do have a corner rounder, but if you don't have one, you can buy those separately at the scrapbook store in the paper punches. You just want to look for a little corner rounder. So anyway, then you're going to fold your sides in, and whichever flap is your bottom. And I would suggest you turn around and look at your card and make sure if you have little snowmen on here or something, they're not upside down. Okay, you don't want them standing on their heads. This one doesn't really matter. Then you will take your score tape. There it is. You're going to peel peel off about 2.5 to 3 inches. And I take 2 of them and have them on my hand ready to go. And I am going to pinch where the bottom flap touches the side, and I'm holding my finger where I pinched it, and I lay it down, and below my finger is where the score tape goes. You don't want to put any score tape up here, because if you do, you will be sticking your envelope closed. Okay, and then you do the same thing to the other side. I'm pinching where they cross, and below my finger is where my score tape goes, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Then you're going to peel that off, stick it down. I generally do not put my tape on here until I'm ready to send it, because if I'm going to hand it to someone, then I'm going to take just a little piece of score tape and I'm going to put it in the corner here. Because you're going to find out that when people get this fancy envelope, they are not going to want to rip it. So they're going to pull very gently to pull this off. You don't want to send it through the mail this way, but if you're handing it to someone, you can just put that little 1/2-inch piece there. If I'm mailing it, it gets a piece here, it gets a piece here. Peel it off. Once your card is inside and all signed, then you will close it. Ready to go. Okay, that's the manual one. So now, if I am going to do my envelope punch board, I first have to decide which is the side I want to see on the outside. And I have decided that I want to see the flowers on the outside, and the purple is the inside. So I put it the flower side down, and my envelope punch board told me that I will punch this at 4.5 inches. That's where my first score line is going to be. I make my score line with the tool that's in here. This is where the score line gets made. So I lay it back in here at 4.5 inches. Remember, 4 and 5 are here, so you're halfway between 4 and 5. Don't by accident think this is 4.5. That's 3.5. So 4.5 inches, punch it. That cuts that wedge out. And I'm going to put my stylus in this trap door, and I can feel underneath it where that groove is. I can't see the edge of it, so I'm going to lift up about 1 inch before I go off the edge. I don't want to rip my paper. Then I will rotate this 90 degrees. I'm looking for that score line, and you probably sometimes have to look at it in different lights. And I'm not sure if you can see it on here or not. It's really hard to see it. I'm just going to show you that it's right here. I'll even draw a little line on it. That's the score line. You can see that pencil line. And that pointer points right to the score line. I line that up perfectly, because I do no longer look up here. No, you don't only do this for the first score line. I will punch. I will take my stylus in this trap door. This time I can see where I'm headed, because it doesn't go off the edge. So I'll go all the way. And then I will, oops, this didn't quite come off. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Here is the score line. I lay my pointer right on that score line. Hopefully you can see it there. There you go, right on the score line. First thing I do is punch, and the second, my pencil in my hand. Second thing I'm going to do is put that in the trap door. I can feel right where that is. It takes a little practice. Remember, this time I cannot see the edge, so I'm going to stop about 1 inch away and lift up. One more. Here's my score line. My pointer is pointing right on the score line. I will punch, and then I'm going to use my scoring tool, and I know I came out perfect when I'm right in the center of that wedge. This is a little heavier paper than just a piece of paper. It's almost, it's about as heavy as it can be and still be called a paper. And so last time I actually did both corners together, and I certainly can do that, but I just wanted you to know, if you have the heavier the paper, the easier it is to punch singly. Okay, so then here are my corners that are rounded, this one and this one. Okay, then you are going to fold it along the score lines. These are my side flaps. Here's my bottom. Once I've got the bottom folded up, I'm going to turn this over and look to make sure my flowers are not upside down. Okay, so this would have been not correct. You've got flowers that are upside down. So that's how you tell which is the bottom flap and which is the top flap when you have a directional print. Okay, and then I will do the same thing. Hold on here, open it up, put my score tape in here, do it on this side, put my score tape below here. I don't put anything on until I decide if I'm handing it to someone or if I'm sending it in the mail, and then I will put my tape on wherever I need it. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. All right. I want to show you one more thing before I open up questions. See if I can find them. OESD has lots and lots of bargain priced collections. When you go on Embroidery Online, you will see across the top of the page, I can't remember, it says embroidery designs, and then there's a word specials. If you click on specials, a menu will drop down and you will see that there are a set of design, a grouping of designs that will be $10 designs, or something they call bargain designs. Bargain designs have all the $10 groupings of collections and things that are $20. And there might be even some other specials in there as well. But I wanted to show you some of the designs that you can find in the $10 section. This is Snow People 6. There are actually 6 different snow peoples. This is called Polar Pals. They're darling. I'm just showing you that how you can find those designs and what some of them are that I enjoy using. This is Snow People 1. You just have to browse through them and then look at them and see if you like a number of the designs in that group. Most of them have 20 designs. There are some that don't. This is Snow People 2. I used Snow People 2 at the beginning of my COVID classes, my Zoom classes, and because we used it so many times, OESD decided to put it back at regular price, $39.99. But it was a really cute grouping. This is Snow People 3. Lots of cute things there. This one's Snow People 4. There were a few in here that I didn't care for, but a lot of them I liked. If it was $10 and I liked a lot of them, I bought them anyway. This is Snow People 5. Another grouping where some I liked and some I was not as fond of. But I just wanted to make you aware that there are those bargain designs, and the reason they're bargains is because they are older designs and they're smaller. And that's exactly what we need for as a card maker. We need those designs that were only made for about a 5x7, sometimes even 4x4 machine hoop. So I just want to give you a heads up. There's also one called Autumn Medley. I should bring this back down. I don't know if you can read my chicken scratching here. Autumn Medley, that's $10. There's the number for that. Snow People 5, not sure if I showed you that one or not, but that's a $10 one. Sunflowers 1. Thanksgiving 2. Halloween one, Seasons 4, that has a lot of Thanksgiving kinds of things, and fall designs, and Snow People 1. St. Patrick's Day is a cute one, and there's one called Berries 1 that has beautiful raspberries, strawberries, all kinds of berries and beautiful leaves and things in there. So anyway, peruse those bargain designs because you may find something in it that you like. And once in a while they put them on super sale, but very often, in fact, twice in the past 2 years, they have retired a bunch of designs from those $10 collections, and then they're gone forever. So if you're interested in those, that's something that you can look at. So once in a while, they do put them on sale for $5, and that's a really bargain. And usually they do that before they're going to retire them completely. All right. So now I can finally ask you for questions. That was a lot of information. Anybody have questions?
I have a question about the Peltex.
Yes.
There's a right and a wrong.
Yes.
Also, mine, I bought some at Joann's, and it's thinner, a little bit thinner than what you gave us.
I can't really comment on that because, you know, the manufacturer is supposed to make them to specifications. Are you sure it's Peltex?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Peltex 70?
Yes. I'm 99% sure it was Peltex 70.
It could have to do with when they, you know, I don't know how they make it exactly, but they must make some sort of a slurry and then pour it into the molds and press the water out. It could have to do with how they compress it.
It's just not a big deal, though, correct?
No.
It's just nothing to be worried about. And then is there visually anything we can look at to tell which is the right side and which is the wrong side?
Well, yes and no. This is the right side, and it looks fuzzy, nice and fuzzy.
Okay.
When you look at the wrong side,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sure this is not going to come through the camera.
No, it's not.
Sometimes it has a little slicker look to it.
Okay.
But your best bet is number one, visually look to see which side looks nicer, which looks fuzzy everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes you will see some little wrinkles on the back side,
Uh-huh.
and that's how you'll know it's the back. But when you cut it off from the bolt, it will have a natural tendency to curl in the direction that it was folded. The top of the mountain, I'm calling this a mountain.
Yeah.
The top of the mountain is the right side.
Okay.
The bottom is the wrong side. So if you lay it down and the middle is up in the air, this is the right side.
Okay.
Okay. So when I cut them into pieces, I will lay them down on my ironing board on the wrong side. I always put a dot in the corner because I know this is going to be the wrong side, and I'll cut my pieces. I already know which is the wrong side. Once I have them cut, I'll take my iron, put a press cloth over it, and give it a quick shot of steam on a very low heat iron, and then they will lay perfectly flat, like this one does. Lays perfectly flat because this is the wrong side because I have my dot on it.
Okay. So the top of the curve, when you have the curve, the top is the right side.
Yes, when you have the curve and you know it's up in the air, this mountain here indicates that that's the correct side, the right side. Okay. Any other questions? You're welcome.
I appreciate you going over that again.
Somebody Suzanne said, take a white piece of paper and put the address on it. Address for what?
Donna, this is Carmen. I was asking a question. That's what she was responding to.
Okay, so you understand that?
Yeah, I do, but I did want to ask you, and
Yes.
you put all this work into a beautiful card, and I'm just starting out with this, and I'm sending that first one I made to a friend who's going through chemotherapy. So I used a very colorful printed sheet of paper for the envelope. So I'm like, I don't have anything fancy to put their name. I just used a permanent marker and wrote their address on as nicely as I could.
Toward the end of class, I'm going to show you how to address your envelopes.
Okay, great. All right,
They're very
thanks.
busy envelopes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other questions? Okay. I'm gonna pick up a couple of items. Sounds like they're bowling upstairs. Really noisy. Okay, so today's topic is the manipulation of your designs. That's the first thing we're going to talk about. And let's see. Put this down. So there are many ways to manipulate your designs. And by manipulate, I mean you put them on your machine in the order that I tell you, and then you're going to be changing the size, making it larger, making it smaller, rotating it 90 degrees, mirror imaging, all kinds of things you can do to manipulate your designs. So let me get this here. I gotta bring my camera over to my machine. All right. Find the right spot. Okay. So the first thing I'm showing you is this little lady here. She has a little bird in her hand. Now, I know these are snowmen and you don't have snowmen, but I'm using them to show, a point. I'm making a point with it. My sewing machine will put any design that I pick centered in my card placement line and in my template. This is what my machine tells me this snowman is centered. Does it look good? No, looks terrible. There's way too much space on this side that's open, and this side's got all the heavy stitching in. There are some designs that simply, no matter what you do to manipulate, will not look good in the oval. So, okay. Next thing I want to tell you is this is a font from Designs by Juju. And I want you to know that you can use any font that you want, either from your machine or a font that you bring into your machine. But when you put Happy Holidays together, I want you to know you can't just type it out. You will have to put uppercase H, go back to your stick, pull out the lowercase a, pull out the lowercase p, and add one letter at a time. Okay, so when I spend my time doing that, and when I do that, I will have a grid on my machine so that I can line it up so that I know my letters are all on the right line. When I take the time to do that, I will always save it. I save it to a file I have in my computer called Greeting Card Sentiments. And then inside that will be Christmas sentiments, which this is one of. And I will save it there because I do not want to go through the the trouble of adding one letter at a time to write Happy Holidays ever again. I want to keep that. Okay, so here's that same little lady with the bird. And you'll notice that I manipulated her because she's now no longer in the center. And also I have put her in the rectangle. I moved her down so that the space between the stars is about the, oh, I didn't want to do that. Well, I'll make it larger. Okay. I wanted to make sure that the space here is about the same as the space down here. I'm not worried about this empty space because she looks better down there. You'll see that I added the words Happy Holidays to the top. And now if I wanted to, I could add, oh, maybe a little snowflake up here, a little snowflake here, and maybe one down here to kind of fill the empty space. I also have a file in my computer or on my computer that is called Greeting Card Littles. And that would be little hearts, little stars, little snowflakes that I can pick and choose so that I can locate them wherever I want, just to make the space a little less empty. Okay, so let me go back. I guess I have to delete all of this. I have to delete these letters one at a time, guys. Get back where I'm going. I have to be careful not to press that button again. Okay, let's go back where we belong. Okay, so here is that same little lady, and this time I have her in the same place in the lower corner of my card, and I have added Merry Christmas from my machine fonts. Okay, so I have written it out there. Again, I would probably like to add a little something down here or a little something up here just to fill the space because I can and because I enjoy doing that. Okay, and then I want to show you when you create design wording on your machine thinks that this is all one design. And so if I wanted to put Merry at the top of my card and Christmas at the bottom of my card, I can't do it with this one because it actually thinks this is all one design. I can move Merry Christmas to the top and I can move Merry Christmas to the bottom, but I can't take the two words apart. So this Merry Christmas looks exactly the same as the one you just saw, but I'm going to set it to my machine. And I want you to notice that the word Christmas has red lines around it. Let me see if I can make that bigger for you. Okay, so you can see that Christmas is highlighted, and I can select what is highlighted, and I can get Merry to be highlighted. So if I wanted to, I can move Merry to the top of my card, and then I can select Christmas and move it to the bottom of my card if I want. I can also move them both to the top, and I can take Merry and move it over, and Christmas and move it over, and maybe up a little bit, not that high. We'll pretend this is in my card. And I can have Merry Christmas in that orientation. And you can only do that if you create the word Merry by itself and Christmas by itself. And now when I want to delete this, I have to delete one word and then the other word. Back. Okay. So here's that same little lady, but this time I left her in the center of my card. My sewing machine tells me that this is centered I still don't like the empty space top and above, and I would probably still put a little tiny snowflake, maybe 2 little snowflakes down here, just to make it look a little more balanced. But you'll notice I used my words from my machine, and this time I arced them, one at the top and one at the bottom. So here's the same little lady in the center. I used another font from my machine, and I put, since the little snowman is kind of whimsical, I moved the letters one up, one down, one up, one down, one up, the same thing at the bottom, just to give it a little more whimsical look. Alrighty. So here's another option. You'll see that I rotated my snowman 90 degrees, and I added the words Merry Christmas, but I put them down here. I've got a lot of empty real estate up here, definitely good spot for either another little bird or a couple more snowflakes, just to fill up that real estate. Okay, and when I do make one where I rotate it and it's going to be a horizontal card, then I will set it to my machine and I will rotate the whole thing so that I can look at it so I can look at it and see very carefully, is the snowman straight? Are the words Merry Christmas in the right spot? And how do I like the little snowflakes I might have put up there? Okay. And then when I'm ready to stitch it, of course, I have to rotate it 90 degrees again, because my window is vertical, not horizontal. All right. So here's another example of 3 words that I wrote that I might use often. I definitely will save this to my sentiment folder, the Christmas folder in my sentiment folder. And if I was smart, I would have created O by itself, holy by itself, night by itself, and put them together so that I can arrange them where I want them on my card. Here's an example of using my O Holy Night. I've got a little snowman that looks like he's praying. I think that came from Snow People 2, and he fits really nicely in the curve here, because I don't know if you can see, but there is some fill stitch snow down here, and it fits perfectly down there. He's got a star, a Christmas star, and I wrote Oh Holy Night, and that's the one you saw that was on the dark color. And sometimes, if I know I have a lot of designs that I can put in for Oh Holy Night, I might save this card minus the design so that I can just pop that on my machine and put my picture design on it, and I'm ready to go. That way I don't have to arrange everything. That's just another possibility. Okay. Sometimes you can find words that are part of designs that already come as part of designs. So this comes from embroiderydesigns.com. There are very few sympathy designs out there. This was one whole sympathy design, but I also really like the words in deepest sympathy. And I might take this to my software if I have it, and I might eliminate the flower and just keep in deepest sympathy, put it in my folder in my greeting card sentiments, and it would be in a folder called sympathy. Okay, and I would save it that way. I also want you to notice that in deepest sympathy is in an arc, but it's not in the same arc as the oval is here. So if I separated this and moved it up, you would see a big difference in the shape of the arc, and that's why it's good to keep it, this one in particular, a little more away from the edge of the card. If I wanted to put a butterfly on here instead of this picture of the flower design, There's two ways to do it. Number one, you can take it to software and get rid of it and then add your butterfly. But if you don't happen to have software, don't feel odd about adding a butterfly right over the top of this, center it right underneath in deepest sympathy. Then when you're stitching it out, you're going to skip all of the color chart for the flower and only do the words and the butterfly. It does look tends to look a little confusing on your screen, but you certainly can do that. All right. So there are some designs that come with words that you cannot take apart, no matter how you try, because if you'll notice the I believe, the words, the letters for believe are kind of hidden behind the arc. They're actually not there. So I can use in hope if I want to, because all parts of the letters are there, but I could not use the I believe. I'd have to create that on my own if I wanted to do something like that. So some designs have words you can take apart and some have designs that you cannot. Okay, this is a design from Embroidery Library, and I'm showing it to you because many people buy designs from Embroidery Library, and I want you to know Embroidery Library's fill stitch designs are extremely dense. When I finished stitching this particular card, the middle of the bow here was dented right into my watercolor card, or my piece of Peltex, sorry. I didn't use watercolor card on there. I did it right on the Peltex. It's dented right in. And what I did to take care of that, and I'm probably going to show you that card later, I actually flipped it upside down on my ironing board. Very carefully, I steamed over the top of the bow. I did not touch my iron to the Peltex at all, not even with a press cloth, because at this point with the flower design on it, I can put stress marks in. So I gave it a quick shot of steam right over the top of the area that needed it, but not touching the card. And then I would take a clapper like this. It's a wooden tool that is used to flatten things, and I would take my clapper and put it over the top of my card, especially in the area that needed it, and my middle of my bow popped right back into place. So if you ever have something like that, you can certainly give it a shot of steam and use a clapper on it and to press it down. You have to press it till it cools and then lift. Okay, so, all right, let's see. Next, I want to show you this design. It's a little hard to see, but this is a hydrangea, a beautiful, beautiful hydrangea. This is a 3 different designs. There's a flourish at the top, then there is the hydrangea and a flourish at the bottom. The flourish at the top kind of goes under the hydrangea. The one on the bottom kind of goes above the hydrangea. This is from Jackie Robinson's OESD collection, simply called Hydrangeas. And I wanted to stitch it because it is shaded so beautifully. You'll notice that I don't have a template on here. I'm going to show you another way to put cards together. I did not want to take this design and squeeze it down, make it smaller, because there's so many layers of color and it's such a beautiful design. So I stitched it out exactly as you see it, almost the full size of my 5x7 piece of Peltex. And I'm going to show you later how I added it to the card. I actually sent that to Jackie Robinson. She was actually in one of my first card classes. She was one of my first students. I was so thrilled. If you don't know who she is, she's a world-known quilter. She has done classes all across the country, and I believe some out of the country. And I was so honored to have her in my class, so that I made this card with one of her designs and sent it to her. And I will show you that later. So, you know, we talked about how some designs do not fit in the oval, and some designs will actually really lend itself to the rectangle. This is kind of rectangular shaped. So this would be a perfect candidate for the rectangle. So I had to make it a little bit smaller to fit inside my template. And if you look very carefully, you'll see that my leaves just barely touch the candle wicking. And I probably would not like it to touch the candle wicking. So if I'm going to stitch this out, I'm going to make my design inside just a teensy smaller, so that my leaves clear the candle wicking. So here's another design from that grouping. It's a kind of a corner design, kind of meant to go in the corner of a napkin or a tablecloth or something like that. But what can I do with that on a card? So I put a rectangular template on, and first of all, it's too large. And you might think I tucked it down in the corner and wrote some words up here, and that's one possibility. This would be a really pretty sympathy card, but that's not what I did. I wanted to show you something else instead. Okay, I took that corner design and I rotated it about 142 degrees, and I made the bottom leaf kind of almost touching the candle wicking, and the top leaves both about the same distance from the candle wicking. And I added the words "get well," 2 words that I had made previously and were in my my stash of designs for sentiments. Okay, and matter of fact, here it is. I actually put "get well soon" together from that font from Designs by Juju, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called Shadow Step. I just kind of liked it because it's not exactly block letters and it's not exactly script letters. It's kind of halfway between. And because I was doing a horizontal card, I sent it to my embroidery and I rotated the whole design together so I could look and see, did I like where I placed "get"? Do I like where I placed "well"? Does the design look okay? All right. Here's another sympathy card, and this is still Shadow Step from Designs by Juju. I put this together before I had any software. Now I would just use software, but just to let you know that you can do that. And I have each one of these words separate so that I can, if I want to put with deepest sympathy at the bottom, or with deepest at the top, sympathy at the bottom, or all of them at the top, and move my design down, I can. Okay. Again, because sympathy cards are one of those kinds of cards that you might like to keep and have on hand, so you can just pop in the appropriate picture for the person who you know who has passed away and their family, and it's ready to go. I saved that to some finished cards that I can just pop in your design. Here is a 3 tulip design. I just want you to know that this came into my machine exactly the way you see it, but you see I have some free real estate here and here, not so much on the sides. I have certainly have increased the size a little bit. If I would like to, I can do that. I also, because these are flowers and no one's going to know exactly what shape they are, I've also increased the height of it to fill my space a little bit, however I feel it looks good. So don't think that you must increase proportionately. You can also stretch your design one way or another to suit your needs. Okay, here is a design that came into my machine. My machine tells me that this snowman is centered. But does he look good? No. I don't like that his scarf is so close to the candle wicking and his pipe is a little bit farther away. If I was going to stitch this on here, I would move it over, but I have a better idea. Let's rotate him 90 degrees, and he still has his scarf a little too close for my comfort over here. My eye tells me that it is not centered. Now, my machine tells me that this is centered, but my eye says no. So I would move him over to the left just a little bit and maybe even up just a little bit to get the scarf away from the candle wicking. So let your eye be the judge. So now I'm going to show you the before and the after. Here is the one where my machine says it's centered. I don't really care for this one. This one looks better to me. I moved it up and to the left a little bit, and now, you know, even though my machine would say that's not centered, my eye tells me that it is. So trust your eye, not so much your machine. Okay, in one of my winter classes, we did this little polar bear, and he's just darling. He's hugging that little penguin, and he just looks really cute. However, my machine tells me that this is centered. I'm going to show you something I think that looks better. I took that polar bear and I rotated him 10 degrees. That's all I did. He still looks like he's sitting down. He's still hugging, but I have more space, evenly spaced around the card, and I'm happier with that. And I'll show you both of them together, the before and after. This is the way my machine tells me it's centered. Look how close it is to the candle wicking. All I simply did was rotate 10 degrees, and I get something that looks more pleasing to my eye. Okay. Let me bring you back here again. There's lots of ways. Oh, I think I made this larger. Get back to my normal set. Whoops. Yeah. Okay. There are many, many ways to manipulate designs, and you just want to make sure that you save things that you are particularly proud of, especially when you take time to do wording sentiments. If you don't have software, it is cumbersome, and if you're going to spend the time to make it, and you can get pretty quick at it, but if you are going to spend the time to make it, then definitely save it so that you have it for the next card that you need, you know, with deepest sympathy, or a Christmas or Hanukkah saying, whatever it is that you want to say. If you make cards that have multiple designs and you're really pleased with them, save them. All right, so now I want to give you just a quickie little show of designs from your collection that have been manipulated. Okay. So this one, I want you to know that I brought it in my machine, and I did increase the size, and I actually did stretch it more than I stretched it horizontally. I stretched it vertically a little bit more to fill up the space. Here is the little teddy bear in there where I added words. These came from my software, but you can certainly do this from your sewing machine as well. These letters are probably, I think they're 1/2 inch. Yep, these are 1/2 inch letters. You probably want to stick with either 5/8 of an inch or 1/2 inch letters for the best look on a card. If you go to 3/4, they look kind of cumbersome.
Donna, could you adjust your camera just a little bit, please?
And
Thank you. Perfect.
Is that good? All right. All right. So here's one of the floral designs in this group. I did move it down just a little bit because it looked better to me. All right. So I let my eye tell me what I think is right. This one came in, I probably increased the size a little bit, and I also added the word spring from my sewing machine, and I just very carefully placed them in a line. Some machines will do justification going up and down as well as across, but at the time I didn't have that, and I just very carefully placed each letter where I wanted it, spacing it out. Here's a happy birthday one. It's using the quilt fill in the background. This design is small enough that I really would not have needed to use the quilt fill. Remember, quilt fills are really mostly for things that are 25, 30,000 or more stitches. It just gives you a little more of a positiveness that it's going to lie beautifully and lie flat, and you're not going to have any stress lines in it. I did Happy Birthday in a light color. I wouldn't choose to do that in a light color again. I also used a variegated thread here. I don't like how the white variegated kind of disappears and looks like it's only half stitched. Here is the little lady carrying, the little bear carrying the basket, and I wrote Happy Easter from my machine. These are about 1/2 inch. Here's a sympathy card. I think you saw this last week. And that one I just have with sympathy. Here's one I added, and this time I rotated 90 degrees, moved my design over here. I'm pretty sure the butterfly comes with this. I actually took the butterfly apart, made it a little bit smaller, and just gave a little interest down here, adding another butterfly. Hi, Valerie. So here's that 3 roses that were supposed to be for the 4th of July with the stars. I added a couple extra stars up here and wrote Happy Independence Day. Another Happy Independence Day with the sunflowers with the flag behind it. I'm sure I made this bear larger to fill my space. This one has probably lettering that's about 5/8 of an inch, a little bit larger than what I did before. Move my design down. Another one, this one has like little shamrocks in it, and I just wrote hello because maybe I would send it to someone just to cheer them up. Here's a happy birthday one. This is a happy birthday whole design that came from embroiderydesign.com. So all I did was lower my butterfly from this collection down, and I added something from, this design from embroiderydesigns.com. It has these little doodads in it already and a happy birthday. So here's what I mean when I tell you that these are 3/4 inch letters. They're almost a little too large for the card. I changed it and made it down to about 5/8 of an inch, so just so you could see the difference in the size of the lettering, and you decide what you think looks best. And here's another one that has Happy Birthday on it above a butterfly. Move the butterfly down. I always try to make sure that the spacing on both sides and the bottom is about the same. I don't like to have like a 1/2 an inch at the bottom and an 1/8 of an inch at the sides. I'd like it to be about the same. I think that looks the best. All right. I think I have some back here on the wall. They're just plain designs from this collection, just so you can see those. And I want to show you this one. I just want to show you, this is a design from Embroidery Library. Now, you might think that this has very few stitches in it because it's got a lot of running stitch, but I'm going to tell you that this is very dense. And the flowers here, especially these pink ones, were super dense. When I finished with my Peltex, all the flowers in the center, at least of the pink, were dented in. I mean, really dented in. I took my Peltex to my ironing board, just like I described before. I hovered it over the top of my Peltex and gave it a shot of steam from the back side, put my my clapper over the top once it was hot and ready to go. Not hot, just medium low heat. And from the back side of my Peltex, I would put this on and hold it. The clapper is going to absorb the heat from the card, and when I was done, this, you wouldn't even know this was dented, okay? It pushes everything back into place. I also wanted to show you this one for the lady who told me that she had cupping or it wasn't lying flat, either when it was on the card or on the Peltex. I want you to see there are no quilt stitches here, and I want you to know that I stitched every color of this little deer twice, trying to make it warp, buckle, bow, whatever you want to call it, give it stress lines, and I got none. Peltex is pretty darn good that way. But I just wanted to show you, even though I tried to make something happen, it didn't. Same thing with this one. I increased the size of my designs and my hyacinths in here, so I increased the number of stitches. I still have a perfectly flat card, and I didn't have to take this to my iron for anything. So just wanted to tell you that. Now let's see. Any questions on manipulating?
Donna, there's a function in some software to remove underlying stitches if you've manipulated a design. Do you ever do that?
Yes, it depends on how much is lying underneath. If you're overlapping two designs and they're both fill stitch designs, and you have to decide which one you want to be on the top and which stitches you want to remove. Yes, you certainly can do that if you're going to be adding multiple designs together. I did not do that in my hydrangea card because I only overlapped a teeny tiny bit, and it wasn't that dense in the area where I was overlapping. Okay. Any other questions about manipulating?
This is kind of off topic. This is Sue Waters. You talk about, well, I guess maybe it isn't, but you're talking about software.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something on your computer that you mess around with, or something that goes onto your machine?
No. Some sewing machines, like the larger Baby Locks, actually have software called iCube.
The iCube, okay.
I forgot what they call it. Design Center. Things that you can manipulate on your machine. But when I talk about software, I'm talking about a program that you put on your computer so that you can bring designs into your computer, into the software, and change what you need.
Okay.
Very often, if I find little tiny designs, I will separate them from, if I find a little bee that I really like, it's teeny tiny and I really like it and I think I might want it for my cards, I will eliminate the rest of the design, save just the bee, and put it in my little greeting card designs folder.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions about manipulating?
Donna, I don't have a question about manipulating, but I am interested in the thread you're using. Are you using a rayon or a poly thread? It looks so shimmery from the camera end.
The thread that's on top of my machine is Floriani thread. Floriani thread tends to be shinier.
Mm-hmm.
I have mostly OESD thread. It's my favorite thread. I do have some New Grow thread. That works out very well also, and it also has a little bit of shine to it, maybe a little bit more than the OESD does. I have the best luck with OESD thread as far as breakage or anything like that.
Oh, that's what I normally use, but it's I've done 4 cards and they're just not as shiny. So I thought maybe it was, I saw you had Floriana, but I didn't know if it was the difference with the rayon or the poly thread. So
Yeah, no, the only time I use rayon, most of the time, the only time I will use rayon is if I'm doing something that's freestanding.
standing,
And
okay.
or I'm doing it on organza and I'm going to be burning the organza away.
All right, thank you.
I do several of those classes that use the burning tool. Floral Dimensions and Christmas Cards Plus are 2 of them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what to do to your Peltex to make it not so white. Maybe you don't just want a white background. So you can do 3 things to it, and you have a PDF that talks about coloring your Peltex, and that's what we're going to be talking about. You'll see all those things written there. You can do 3 different things. You can spray paint, you can chalk it, and you can watercolor it. All right, maybe there's other options out there that I maybe haven't pursued. Maybe you can find something else that will work to color it. So I'm going to just show you a couple of things. So when I use spray paint, I definitely do it outside. This is just regular Krylon. You can have store brand paint. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't have to be glittery or shiny or glossy. It doesn't make any difference. It all turns out about the same on the Peltex. I like to color my Peltex kind of simply. You will see that I used a dark blue here, but I left some of the white here. If I'm going to do a snowman, the snowman will look kind of like he's sitting on the snow. I will take my can probably about a foot away from my surface, and I will just spray across. I don't hold it in one place. I only want a fine misting, and I don't care that it's solid blue. This is a little more solid than usual, but I have some darker places and some lighter places. That's what I like. I like the mottled look. Here is one where I sprayed a little bit of this light blue, I think it was this blue, and some green at the bottom. So if I'm going to do flowers, I can have the flowers growing from the green grass, or maybe this looks a little bit brownish, could be the dirt. That would be what I would use it for. Maybe I just have a Christmas design I want to do. Notice this is not perfectly all solid red. There's lighter areas and there's darker areas. It adds interest. Maybe I'm going to do a card for a little girl, and it's her birthday, and I want to put a pink cupcake on it. I sprayed this in pink. This one looks a little more solid than usual, but I don't try to make it solid. I try to have some lights and darks. So that's what you do with spray. I'm not going to actually demonstrate that because spray paints have distillates, and that's not good to do indoors. So now I've got some pieces of Peltex that are chalked. Here I've used 3 different colors. Here I've just used one color and swirled it around. Now I don't really like this. I would probably end up washing this away and redoing that after it dried. Here's one that has some blues. Actually I did white on the bottom. This could be a sky with the snowman and the snow. Just a real pretty pink background, mottled. We don't want the background of our Peltex to be the star. We want it to be just an addition of a little bit of color, nothing much. Okay, here's another one. Again, I left it white in case I was doing a snowman. So I've got sky and snow. This one's just a little bit pink. This one's got some, I remember when I did this one, I was thinking about sand, water, the shoreline on the other side of the water, and sky. I don't know why. I don't usually get that complicated with my arranging, but I think I had some footprints and something with the water that I was doing. Now this one's really overkill. I was thinking about a sunset, and I tried to do, a little bit of sun and a little bit of the colors of the sunset. I think this is probably a little too busy, a little too much. But I do like this one. This has got just 2 colors, purple and blue in it, kind of like a sky. Here's one. red, yellow, and blue. Notice I accidentally did it on the wrong side. You know, there's no police out there. No one's going to, you know, notice that you did something on the wrong side. And of course, that little dot would be cut away anyway afterwards.
And this is chalk?
This is chalk. Now I'm going to show you how to do chalk. All right. So here are some of my blending chalks. I have chalks. They kind of come like we used to get watercolor paints. I don't know if you remember when you were a child and we got this little tin of watercolor paints, but these are chalks. And some of them are shimmery. It really doesn't matter because the shimmer doesn't really show on the Peltex anyway. But I have a bunch of different ones that have different colors. These are more pastel. These are brighter. And for today, I think I'm going to use these. All right. So I've got to find a piece of Peltex. Here we go. I apply this with a round stencil brush. This is the kind of brush that you would use. Remember when we did stenciling on the walls and things like that, and we taped our stencil up and we dipped it in the paint, and then we you know, stippled it on, and we would have a lovely flower or a leaf or whatever it is. But I like to use this one. I like to use this big one. I also have a smaller one in case I need to put something in a small area. The only time I use the small ones is if, let's say, I stitched on white and I'm finished and I thought, oh, I wish I would have put some color in the background. And then I can either use a Q-tip if I've got fine areas to get in, rub it on my chalk and use my Q-tip in those areas, or I can use a smaller brush. But to do the large area, I use this large brush. Let's say I'm going to do blue sky, and I'm maybe going to pick this blue over here. You can see I use this blue a lot. Okay, I just get some on my brush, and I'm going to bring it over, and I like to kind of make circles above before I actually make contact. And you're not going to see a great deal of color yet. I just begin adding more by circling round and round. And sometimes I will add a second color. I think the circling around sort of gives you the idea of the clouds. You know, a kind of a mottled look. I'm going to add a little darker blue now. Oh, you can't even see that. Sorry. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of this darker blue. And I'm going to be real careful where I put it on. Just want to get a little bit at a time on. And you know, you're the judge of when you're finished. I think I would let this go. I like to go over it with my brush, kind of pushing the chalk into the Peltex. Sometimes people will ask me, hey, you know, if you rub your hand over it, do you get anything on your hand? And the answer is really not much. Okay, so you can use a fixative on this. There are all kinds of fixatives in the art world that you can fix your chalk like you would use when you do pastels. If you choose to do that, you're going to want to let it dry well. I don't. I really don't have a problem with it rubbing off. This is not that much chalk. So even if I took really, there's almost nothing there. Okay, so this would be ready to go. Obviously, you can use any color palette that you want. If I wanted to do the pink and purple, I could do that. If I wanted to do all in greens or yellows, if I wanted to add maybe I want to add a kiss of yellow. Like this is the sun area coming down. Could do that too. Maybe that's where the sun is. All right, so that's chalky. Now I also want to show you that if you cannot find these kinds of chalks, these came from a scrapbook store. Look what you can use. This is Crayola chalk. Crayola colored chalk is pretty strong in color. And what I would do with this, because you can't really like, rub on it to get the color off. And so I would take my knife. You can even use a sharp knife if you want. And I'm going to use this piece of paper to work over the top. And I would just take the back side of my knife and I will start scraping at it. Should get my finger out of the way. And you will see that I'm creating dust. And that's what I would dip my brush into. And if after I've used used this brush for my blue, maybe I want to use yellow now, all you need to do is brush it off on a piece of paper. You can see nothing's coming off of it. It might have a little color on the brush, but it doesn't matter. It's not coming off. So now I could dip into yellow and not have to worry. Okay. So Crayola works just as well. So now my favorite technique is my watercolor. So I'm going to put these away. And let me show you some watercolor. Well, before I finish with chalk, I just want you to know you can go to a craft store. These are all stencil brushes. This whole set of stencil brushes was $7.99, and I think I bought it with a half off coupon. Every size in the rainbow is in here. From very small ones over here, the real tiny one, to the very heavy one that I was using. Just a different set. Okay, so here we go. Here's a tri-colored one. This is all watercolor. And don't think you can't do this, because I'm telling you, if you can scribble, you can do this. The way you want to look at it. It's just a blending of colors. Sometimes I use 3 colors, sometimes I use 2, sometimes I only use 1. Just really pretty background. And that's what I'm looking for, just a really pretty background that isn't going to detract from the design that I am putting on it. This would be pretty with fall leaves on it. Got a little dirt on here, but that would be part that would be cut off. Oh, I got a lot of dirt on this one. I washed that one right out. Okay, the cool thing about watercolor is that once you make a piece of Peltex with the watercolor on it, if you don't like it, you can take it to your sink faucet and wash it all the way. It will be white as can be, and you can start over again. So anyway, those are some watercolors. Now I want to show you how to do it. A lot of fun.
Donna,
Yes.
would you still stitch the quilt fill in white?
If you have a predominant color, pastel color that you are watercoloring, then I would go with that color. So if I had a predominantly blue one, I might use a very pale blue. You can match the watercolor if you want to. Now, obviously, if you're doing 3 different colors of watercolor, then, you have to pick and choose which one is the largest or whatever. These are Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils. They're just wonderful. I love them. I got this set of 72 for Mother's Day one year, and I really, really like them. There are other good watercolor pencils as well. Today I'm going to pick 2 greens and a red. It's kind of a Christmassy color one. And remember, I told you, you can do this. This is not hard. I'm going to choose my 2 greens to go on the opposite corners. I'm just using the side of my pencil, and I'm scribbling. You don't have to get it all filled in. I think I'm going to put red in the center. I know you're going to say, oh, that looks ridiculous, but okay, I'm done. This is going to be beautiful. I'm going to take a little basin and I'm going to be putting some a sprayer of water. I've got a little spray bottle. It's got water in it, and I'm going to begin by spraying. And you're going to see the colors become more vibrant. They're going to be brighter. I'm going to give it a real good soaking. Okay, and then I'm going to take and manipulate this with my hands. And if I had, well, actually this is pretty safe right here. I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to start rubbing. The rubbing kind of helps it to start blending. And now it's not looking quite so much like the scribble that it was. It's kind of moving the color around. Okay, so now I'm going to take it back and I'm going to add some more water. The Peltex kind of acts like a sponge. And so it really does hold the water. Continue round and round, and when you feel you're finished, that's great. Now, if you look at this and you say, oh my gosh, that's too much color. I need to soften it up. Then you will take some water in your little basin, and I've got a container of water, and I'm going to put about 1/4 of an inch in there. Then I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to flip it upside down into the water. I'm going to move it around back and forth, and now my color is a little more muted, a little less bright, and maybe that's the effect I'm looking for. Okay, now this is saturated with water. You're going to take, when you're finished, you're going to take this, an old kitchen towel. Don't use your best towel because, you know, it could get stained. And you're going to just press some of that water out, okay? Now, I was thinking, when I first started doing this, I decided that I was going to take my piece of Peltex outside and I was going to shake it. And I thought, I'll get the water out by shaking it, and then it won't take so long to dry. Well, guess what? I shook it outside, I brought it back in, and when I brought it back in and looked at it, it was totally white Peltex again. I actually shook all the color out. For the color to stay in this piece of Peltex, we must let it dry. Okay, so I would take this and lie it flat in the sun and let it probably sit there for a day. It's going to take at least 5 hours for it to dry completely, because this is sort of like a sponge. So depending on how much of the water you have blotted out of here, and what happens if you look at it and say, oh, I took too much color out. No problem. Just go back to your pencils and reapply and begin again. So there's that. It's not difficult. It's a lot of fun. When I'm doing it, I will definitely do more than one at a time. I play with the colors. I look to see what it is. If I hate it, I wash it out underneath the faucet and I begin again. And you don't even have to wait for it to be dry to begin again. You can actually apply color while it's wet. You'll get more vibrant color that way. And if you need to, you can take it to your basin and soften it up again if you need to. So I'm going to put that aside. Okay, so I'll make sure that I covered everything that I wanted to. Okay, so now I gotta watch our time. Yikes. we really are moving a little slower than I would like to. But, all right, so now I'm going to talk to you about ways to put cards together. All right, here is that hydrangea that I did for Jackie Robinson. And I told you that I stitched it on the whole piece of organza, Peltex, and it was, you know, pretty much covered the entire piece. And how am I going to mount that now? I took that to my sewing machine and I did a small zigzag all around, pivoting all the way around and going back up again. Now, I didn't put my card together because I wanted you to be able to see the little zigzag. Okay. And then I would put my score tape on and I would tape it here. You notice I did not use a black mat this time. I used the purple because there simply are purples in here and I wanted it to go well together. I stitched that one and sent it to Jackie Robinson, and here's the envelope that went with it, beautiful hydrangeas. Okay, so now, someone sometimes will ask me, hey, what, you know, you send these watercolor cards in your kit. Can I embroider on a whole watercolor card? The answer is yes. What you would do is stitch your Peltex just as normal. Notice I have green, I've colored it green here, and this design is from an OESD collection called Gifts of Gold. I did have to make the bell a little smaller. I added Joyous Noel at the bottom. Once I had my Peltex done, you will take your just pretend this design isn't in here. You will lay your card the side that you want your picture to be on, bend the back up just a little bit, and then you have this whole green piece and you're going to stitch the tack down line, trim around it, and stitch your candle wicking. And when you're finished, you will release it the same way you did before by pulling off the back and pushing it to the table. And then when you're finished, the inside of your card actually does have the embroidery on it. And you know, you probably don't want someone to open the card and see the back side of embroidery. So you will put a lining on it. And the lining, and I have, where is it? Here it is. The linings, if you are lining the large card like we've got, the 5 3/4 by 7 3/4, you will line that at with a piece that is 7 1/2 by 11 1/8. Fold it in half and put it in. If you are lining a 5 1/2 by 7 1/2 inch card, it's a little bit smaller. It's going to be a little bit smaller both in both directions, so that it doesn't stick out of the card once you have it folded. So anyway, the 5 1/2 by 7 1/2 would be 7 1/8 by 10 5/8. And if you're just doing a 5 by 7 card like this one is, then you would do 6 5/8 by 9 5/8. A little bit less tall and a little bit less wide than your whole outside of your card. Now, when you go to put it in, you know I have one here. When you go to put your lining in, here's how you work it out. Okay, pretend your design is on here and you open your card up. You're going to keep your design up in the air at a 90-degree angle. You are going to fold a piece of paper that was cut as I described, and the only part that gets tape on it is the part that's going to cover the back of the embroidery. So I will put it on 3 sides. You don't need it in the middle. I would tear the tape off, and then I would hold it in my hand like this, okay? and I am going to take the fold of my lining and tuck it into the fold of the card, move it back and forth so I know that it's seated, and I'm looking at the top and at the bottom of the card to make sure that I have a little bit of white showing, and when I have it centered, I simply close the card. Once you've closed the card, you will have something that looks like this. It is only stuck to the back of the embroidery. The back of your lining should never be attached. Okay, the back of the lining has to be free hanging. If you go into the store and you look at any cards that are lined, you'll see exactly the same thing. Why? If I actually stuck that down, look what happened if I close it. You see that gap? That's what happens. And that's why you always leave the back hanging free. Okay.
Donna, what
Yes.
weight or kind of paper are you using for the liner?
Oh, it's just regular scrapbook paper. Just paper. It will feel like a piece of paper that you use for your computer, like a 20-pound. But most often, those scrapbook papers do not have any numbers on them. I don't normally choose to make the card right on the watercolor card because I like the way this looks better. I like the frame of the mat and my color behind it. So this is what I would have chosen to do with this one rather than to use the 5x7. But if you want to, it's there for you to do that. Now, sometimes you might find, I think you can see stress lines here, and down here. Okay, this was used, stitched on stiff stuff, which is not as heavy as Peltex. But I save it because I like to show what you can do if you should ever come up with a stress line. If you look carefully at the top, there are no stress lines. That's because I went to my sewing machine and I did a little bit of free motion around my snowman. I am actually quilting out any stress lines that might be there. And I would continue to do so all the way around. And when you're finished, guess what? Those stress lines are gone. You've disguised them and you've saved your card. Okay, let's see. All right, in your collection, you have a card that looks kind of like this. I wanted to show you what you can do to make those cards look a little bit better, those old-fashioned cards. I actually stitched on a piece of my Mylar fabric. It was white, and I actually made these into little appliques, and I fussy cut around them, and then I colored them with either Sharpies or alcohol ink markers. I put a piece of fabric in the background, stabilized with probably 2 layers of maybe cutaway stabilizer, just to give it a little bit more to hold my stitches on without looking as though they were stressed in any way. But anyway, this is something you can do with these kinds of cards that, in my opinion, are pretty ugly. Okay, you know, they were old-fashioned cards, and here is the old-fashioned card, and this is what OESD intended for you to do with it. Here's what I did. Okay, I don't know, which one do you think looks better? I guess it's up to you. I mean, I guess there's a place in the world for this kind of card too, but I chose to put a piece of foam down. This is a thin craft foam. And on top of that, I put my fabric so that it got a kind of a puffy trapunto look. And then this is faux leather. My flowers are done on white fabric. I fussy cut around them, and then I colored them with my alcohol ink markers, and as well as the centers. And so anyway, just a way that you can use those kinds of designs should you have some of those in your collection. Again, here's another one of those really ho-hum cards that, you know, I don't like to do anymore. That's that. All right. So we don't have a great deal of time left, but it's 12:30. You can go to your machine and begin stitching a card if you like. I want you to know your project today would be to choose your own design. You choose which template. You choose whether to use a quilt fill in the background or not. But I would like you to either move your design down in your template and add a word or two at the top using a font from your machine. Even if you only write hello on it, like I did on that one card, just for the experience of moving the design so that it looks pleasing to your eye. Remember, don't use your machine's judgment. You want to use your own judgment. So while you go to do that, and at least maybe put it all on your machine, make sure you're doing at least your second card. So you are going to still put all the parts exactly as on your instructions. You're going to put the card placement line. You're going to put either the quilt fill or choose not to. That's going to be your choice. Remember, if you're over 20,000 stitches, 25,000 more, you definitely would like to use the quilt fill. It's just more insurance that everything's going to turn out without any stress lines. You're going to add the OESD picture design or any other design of your choice, and then you're going to add either the oval or the rectangular card template, whatever to match. If you're going to use the quilt fill, you want it to match. You don't want one rectangle and one oval. Remember, when you begin to stitch, you're going to skip the first two steps, which means on your machine, you're going to skip past the card placement line because you already have one in your window. Okay, so you don't have to stitch that again. So the first thing you're going to either do is, if you're doing the quilt fill is first. If you're just doing a design, you're beginning the design and doing all the steps of the design. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm going to pick up a little bit and then do my little trunk show. You can either watch on the recording. Don't forget about the coupons. Remember, if you want to take advantage of the OESD stabilizers, that you must do that today by calling the store and telling them what you would like to order, and they will do that for you. And also, because you are here at class, you do get a 15% off on class supplies. However, quite frankly, I think the coupons have everything covered. Okay? So you guys go start putting things on your machine, and I'm going to pick up and start my little trunk show. Up with any questions if you have any.
Donna, are you going to address how to address envelopes that are on very busy printed paper?
Yes, before we leave, I will. just in case, I know there were a few people who had to leave already. If you have to leave before I am finished with everything, just know that you'll be able to watch it on the recording. Okay, this little trunk show is going to take you from the beginning of my card journey to what we're doing now. And I'm not going to focus too much at the beginning, but I do think it's important that you see some of the things that were, you know, what we were doing back then. This is probably about 13 years ago. This is one of those Smith Street card from my Smith Street days. I used my scrapbooking. This is an OESD design called Applique Greetings, and it was kind of fun to do. I showed my class how to do Mylar fabric, and that's something you're going to see in cards 201. I always tried to give my class more choices than what a design CD would do, and so this was the design that came with our kit, and these are some applique designs that I added to my class so that they could do more than just one baby card. I think we had a little ducky or something too. And this is as it came from Applique Greetings. I taught my class how to do it with a fill stitch applique. It has some fill stitch and some satin stitch on it. The trick was that there's a layer of organza underneath here so that it wouldn't break through. There were still times when, especially on these areas, the design would break through because of the stitching. I think these are not perfectly perfected. And this is Applique Greetings. And then there was a time when I was doing watercolor cards. I was stitching directly on the card a design that was a red work kind of design, and we would use our watercolor pencils to color them in. It was a kind of a fun project. Here's another one. And then I'm still looking for how to put more stitches on a card, and I came across these, which were, I think these were called OESD Christmas Glitz, and we were stitching on felt back then. This was spring glitz. I've got some satin stitch and some fill stitch in here. I'm doing okay with it. It's not perfect, but that was the beginning. Then I did a grouping called Heirloom Petals, which were supposed to look like hand-stitched embroidery. And you can see this is an old design. You can see some jump stitches that have not been cut yet. That's where I use my little snippers and my tweezers to hold on to those so I can snip them really close. But we were doing some fringing. Here's another one from that collection. Just another idea. And then I started my love for organza. And here is a sparkly, it's got glitter on it, organza. I used variegated thread, and look at my leaves are all striped. Not happy with the stripes on that, but it was an experiment. And then here is an organza card. This was a tri-colored organza, so you see blue, purple, into the pinks, into the oranges, into the yellows. This was a gorgeous piece of organza. Just happened to find that one at a shop. Still working on organza. These are 3 tulips, and in this class we were actually adding rubber stamped sentiments, and they are raised up from the card with double stick foam, and we also added some metallic stitches in here. More on organza. It's not perfect because you can see some stress lines right up here. It wasn't bad, but I still needed some work on that. This is also organza, sparkly organza, and I started to look for designs that I thought would work on my cards, and this is all satin stitched, a little bit of fill stitch. Another one, these came from embroiderydesigns.com. This is from Stitch Delight, and this is that 3-color organza, real pretty. I used it kind of as the sky, the sun, and pink at the bottom. And then there were some appliques that actually had some stitches running through them, and I used that over the top of my Mylar fabric like I teach you in cards 201. And this one I thought was really pretty. I did like that one. Unfortunately, this set of designs was retired last year. This set of designs, these are appliques, is still available though. You'll find it. I think it's called Christmas 15 or Christmas something or another. Christmas appliques. But we're using Mylar fabric there and fabric in the background. Then there was a set of designs called mini quilts. And in the mini quilts, there were some pretty appliques, and this is wording from my machine on a beautiful piece of ombre fabric. Another one from that collection, this shows, they are like a 4-inch mini quilt that you can make and actually bind, but I did the quilting line around the applique and left the rest of it off. Here's another one of those. This is a really cute turkey. Words from my machine. Still trying to figure out what will work and what won't. I found these at Embroidery Library. These are 12 designs, so that means they're kind of loosely stitched. But I did that on top of felt, another 12 design. This is an OESD redwork design. Here's that Old Holy Night that I arranged differently, and I had this is an OESD design. This is an Anita Good design, I think, but I actually used wording from another collection. This is from embroiderydesigns.com, just trying to see how many stitches I can get on this organza without it having to have stress lines. I did this one for a wedding. I have also moved Mr. and Mrs. up, put the surname in and the date at the bottom. Very nice idea. This is rippled stitches from embroiderydesigns.com. A little bit of fill stitch, a little bit of satin stitch, and mostly line work. It's stitched out nicely. Now, before I came up with what you are doing for the holidays, this was the last card I made before I figured out how to put more stitches on a card. And this probably is the most number of stitches that I have actually stitched on a card where I did not get some stress lines. This was for my son, he's an electrician. At one time I did trifold cards, and I taught that in the class. So that was one of my trifolds. The envelope that went with that one matched so nicely. This is an Anita Good design that I wanted to try. If you would ever actually see this design in a CD, they were plug ugly. They had a printed fabric for the background here and another printed fabric underneath here. And they fought and competed with one another. You could not see the beauty of this kind of stained glass look. I bought this collection because I really liked some of the wordings that were in there. This is from Artistic Threadworks, and this is the wording here. The Bean Stitch wording comes from Redwork Greetings, which I'll be telling you about. Then here's another design. This one has quite a few stitches in it, and I can see right here, there's a little bit of buckling. And this was a design, both of these are designs from embroiderydesigns.com. This is from Purely Gates. It is a Mylar design, so there is Mylar behind the roses, and it kind of sparkles and shines, but I also have it on sparkly organza. Then I started working with OESD. And the store owner here at the time encouraged me to work with OESD, and I put together a bunch of designs that they already made, and I added them together. There were 62 designs in here. They're all Redwork designs. That's why it's called Redwork Greetings. But also in here were all of the Happy Thanksgiving, all the holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Valentine's Day, Happy St. Patrick's Day. They're all in here in Bean Stitch, because at that time I thought it was all we could do on a card. But, you know, OESD did this kind of a card. That's not what I did in my class. In my class, I taught them how to use my Mylar fabric. There's two pieces of Mylar fabric on here. One is a blue and one is a white. And we actually fussy cut around here as though it were an applique, and then colored in with either a Sharpie or alcoholing marker. Again, same thing, okay? And these were really pretty ornaments. It's too bad they got rid of these as well. The only place you can get any of them is in the collection called Redwork Greetings, which I pulled all the designs together. OESD got all the credit. I didn't even get a free design. Then here's a cute little ghost with a pumpkin for Halloween. I would not use orange for the writing, and I probably wouldn't use such a dark background again because you can't read it. This is from what you are doing right now, Home for the Holidays. So let's move on to Home for the Holidays. Okay, I showed you all the ones from your collection. So this is from the fall and winter collection. So we've got this little guy. Notice I did use a quilted background here. Again, this is one of the ones that I had to put Color Keep Topping underneath. Also, one thing I did not tell you about Color Keep Topping, you do not want to do, let's see if I can find one. No matter what, you would not want to use Color Keep Topping on a design like this, because although you would be able to peel it away from these big leaves, once you get into these little areas, you would drive yourself crazy trying to peel it away. So if you have something that's airy and is not defined by, for example, like this, I can kind of draw a line around the whole design. There's no airy parts where, you know, the quilt fill covered by the Color Keep Topping would be difficult to take out. This one, it's not difficult to take out. This one, it would be difficult to take out. So you definitely don't want to use Color Keep Topping on something like this. Right? Here's one of those snowmen where I added words from my machine. And here's that Oh Holy Night little snowman. These do not need Color Keep Topping because there's nothing behind here to block out. Okay, there is no quilt fill or dark colored quilt fill. So Merry Christmas went on here. This little guy. This is kind of like a Joe Cool penguin. But I mostly use the white. I love this guy. And this is that one that I rotated just that little 10 degrees, and now I've got a lovely amount of space all the way around him. He looks very well centered. Very happy little guy. These little bears and the bears that are in your group have the most amazing digitizing in there. It really almost looks fuzzy and like you want to touch it. I used some metallic threads on this one. Quilt fill behind it. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. The only time you really probably want to, for sure, is, 25, 30, 35,000, 60,000, definitely. Okay. Little snowman. Oh, this one's cute too. Here are those little snowflakes that I added just to fill up the dead space, the extra space that I had, just to make it look a little bit better. This is a design from Xandra Shaw that I stitched out when someone in her family was ill. I had to send it to her virtually. This is another one of her designs. It's a little snow globe with some sequins inside there, I believe in magic. This is also a Xandra Shaw. This is from Embroider Shop, this part in here, but this is Xandra's lace. That was a free webinar, the lace. And these are raw edge appliques, stash of fabric. That's from Xandra Shaw as well. I want to show you this one because I don't have it actually physically here. This one is from Xandra Shaw's Bunny Garden, and this card actually went to Miss Kim Love, who did Xandra a fabulous favor when she needed it, when she was stuck in the United States with no place to live. Kim opened up her home to Xandra and gave her a place to stay until she could get back home because they closed the borders everywhere. But anyway, so I made that and sent that to her. This is from Jackie Robinson's Chickadees and Berries. This little bird has lots of stitches in it, and the shading is just amazing. And also the frond of evergreen was just beautiful. This is the same design by Jackie Robinson. I colored it a little bit. You can see the light blue here and a little bit of kiss of yellow here. And I increased the size of the bird. And I added these words, and I placed each letter where it was so that it would fit the curve of my oval. This is from OESD called True Friends. And this is actually stitched on organza. That's what I do in cards 201. Very pretty. Let's see. This is from Sonia Showalter. This is a gorgeous tree. It's got beautiful, beautiful digitizing. I hope you can see the Christmas needles on the tree. And it's in a fancy pot. This is called repotted tree, and she calls it repotted tree because she had this design and it was in just kind of a regular flower pot and it didn't do it justice, so she repotted it in this fancy one and calls it the repotted tree. This is OESD. It's from Birds and Blossoms. really pretty dainty. I used small letters on it because it was such a dainty design. And I'm not going to get to all of these, but because I always bring way more than what I can possibly fit in. But I do want to show you these because these are some really darling. These are from my small cards class. These were for my grandchildren. I just made extras so that you guys could see them. These are from, the designs are from Stitch Delight. These little bunnies, these are called Bugsy Bunnies. This is from Embroidery Library. This one is the 60,000 stitch card. You will notice most often I will use my quilt fill, but I had an awful lot of open space here, and so I decided not to use the quilt fill. And there's a lot of stitching everywhere, and so I knew I was going to be pretty safe. Not one stress line. I do not remember. This probably is Embroidery Library also. I added the words Happy Easter, but I just love the bunny. And this lamb is just adorable. That's from Embroidery Library. Oh, I did have this one. I thought I made a second one, and I did, and I just couldn't remember where it was. This is Kim Loves. This is actually a furry, fuzzy fabric. So the bunny looks nice and furry. But anyway, that's how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to go on to a few things that I have left to show you. I know it's really late. Okay, so let's see if I can move this without spilling everything I've got here. Okay. So what can you do for the inside of the card? Gotta move that out of the way, don't I? For the inside of the card, you can rubber stamp on a piece of that 65 weight smooth cardstock that I showed you at the beginning, when I showed you solid core. This is obviously solid because it's white, but you can cut small rectangles out, rubber stamp on them. The good thing about rubber stamping on this is that if you mess it up, you can throw it out and start with another little rectangle. And you'll see some of the paper punches that I use to kind of fancy it up here. And then you would simply, here's the outside of the card. This one is a flip card. And I would put some score tape on the back of this and line it up in here, and the inside is done. I would like to show you that on the back of here, there are rubber stamps that say handmade with love or made with love. I don't think I have any other ones here. But you also can go to the store and buy a package of inexpensive dollar store cards. The inside may have some really lovely sayings on them. I just cut the fold off and I corner punched the edges, and this one says, "May the magic of Christmas live in your hearts forever." I thought that was really beautiful. And so here's another one. "At the holidays, wishing you joy that celebrates, hope that shines, and peace that lasts." So I would be cutting off the fold. I would use what's inside. I would corner punch them. I'll show you a corner punch. These are Martha Stewart corner punches, but lots of companies make them. You actually just slide your corner in here and you give it a punch, and you've got a finished edge like this. Really pretty. They come in lots and lots of different punches. So I have lots and lots of those. Let's see. Other things that you can do on the inside of the card is to, very obviously, write your own message. You know, use it kind of as a place to write a letter. Write your own message in there. You can also go to your computer and you can print something up, cut it out off the paper. You can even use a little 65 weight cardstock in your computer to print something out, make it fit, and score tape it inside. Okay. Talked about the back of the card. Now let's talk about the envelope. Okay. So a lot of these cards have very, very busy envelopes, and writing on it with a Sharpie in some cases is just not going to be doable. And so what I do is I take a small piece of cardstock and I will write their name on. I'll corner punch it if I would like to. And then I do take packing tape. Because these are wide, I made a quite large one. You don't have to make yours that large, but I put 2 pieces over it. You really and truly can't hardly even see it. If I shine it a little bit, you might be able to see where they're connected. But if you cut the edges with your scissors a little bit, you want to make it wide enough. You don't want this to come off during the postal process. Then I would put one of my own address labels up here, and I would take a piece of tape and I would tape over it to make sure that it doesn't accidentally, sometimes some of those address labels don't have the best glue on the back, so I always put a piece of tape over it, and that's how I address. Are there any questions? Hop up and ask me anything that you could possibly think of. I think I have given you everything that I possibly could at this point. I know it's a whole lot, and I know your heads are reeling. I am going to go and give you my little advertisement for my other classes. I know that some people have to leave. That's okay. You can watch it on the recording, but I want to go over all of the things. If you can stay, please do so. If you can't, I understand. And I wish you happy card making.
Donna,
Yeah.
my head is about to burst.
I know.
Thank you so much. So valuable. Unbelievable.
You are very welcome. Okay, so, all right. Cards 201. First of all, the only people who can come to Cards 201 are people who come to Home for the Holidays. So you are the only people who can come to this class. I don't open it up to anybody who has not taken Home for the Holidays because you frankly don't have the experience that you need. So here are some of my organza cards. I'm going to be teaching you how to stitch successfully on organza, no stress lines. This is a design from Xander Shaw. It's one of her raw edge designs. Beautiful. This is from, oh, by the way, there are 2 techniques here. One is the organza, the other is the mylar fabric, which I'm going to teach you how to make. Sometimes you can use more than one idea in a card. This is the organza, no, not organza, oh my gosh, mylar fabric. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 colors of mylar on here from the white and the 3 colors in the hats. Another one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors in here. This is organza fabric that I'll teach you how to make. Another, I said organza again, mylar fabric. Mylar fabric, this is mylar, the white is the mylar, and some fill stitch on over the top of it. And we've got the fabric frame that you're going to learn how to do. And here's another one. Here's that little tiny deer that I showed you earlier that I made larger, that I tried to make my card warp with. Beautiful. That's from Embroidery Library. This is a free design. It's still free today on embroiderydesigns.com. If you go to their free designs, you will find, and maybe you might have to put in snowman, and you'll come up with this skinny little snowman. He's just adorable, stitches out beautifully. And here are finally my organza. This is a blue sparkly organza with a design, and I think this design is from Amazing Designs. And here is a design. This is that same design that I showed you that the pink flowers really dented in. Again, same thing happened here. Again, I used my clapper and some steam, and came out pretty well. Another fabric frame, another fabric frame. These are the three things you're going to learn in Cards 201. That's a one-day class that does not, it does not have stitching time in class. You will get a download, and there are no designs, like OESD designs, included in this class. You will be picking and choosing your own designs once you go to make these cards. You can certainly use them from anywhere. By the way, that was a Kimberbell design, sparkle all the way. So you can use designs from anywhere. So let me put that aside.
Donna,
Yes.
I wanted to show you what I put together starting earlier this morning. I don't know if you can see it.
I have to unpin myself in order to see you, so hang in there. Let me see if I can figure out where here we go.
I haven't, I still haven't the beginning, but I added the hello like you asked us to. This was too big, so I downsized it a little bit. This is from Steampunk.
Probably from Urban Threads.
I think so.
Okay.
And there it is. And I'm gonna do the same lettering. I'll put the candle wicking around
Okay.
it.
Good. Very nice. It's nice to see people step out of their comfort zone and use different designs as well. I
had to learn how to change jump drives because they were on 2 different jump drives and stuff like that. So it was
as
fun.
long as you set it to your machine, you'll have no problem. It's
Yeah.
there. It will stay there. And then you can add another whatchamacallit. So Cards 201 is May 17th. This is the smaller cards class, and we have a tiny card, we have a gift card, gift tag, and this is the small card. Okay, so we have a small card, we have a tiny card, and we have a gift tag in that class, and that one is, you know, that one's on the schedule for, let's see, May 27th and June 3rd. That's a Friday. So here are a couple more of the smaller cards. These are 4 inches by 5.5 inches. They are the common size that one would send as a thank you card. So that's about the size that they are, and they do send through the mail.
Is it a 2-day class?
Yes, the small cards class is a 2-day class. Then there's Christmas Cards Plus, where we are going to be stitching out some beautiful branches. This one just happens to be a very simple one, and we're going to be attaching to them some freestanding, either totally freestanding lace or also on organza, and we will be burning the organza away. So Christmas Cards Plus is one of those that you will use a burning tool for. This one happens to be freestanding lace, but it can also do this on organza and burn it away as well. Both look really pretty. This one's got organza in part of it, and part of it is freestanding lace. And this one I stitched, oh, by the way, you'll see I used a sparkly paper. That's why you'll see that there are stitching on here. Okay. And that class is going to be, it should be somewhere around September 10th, once it gets added to the calendar. This is from...
What's the name of the class again? I'm sorry.
Christmas Cards Plus.
Okay.
Actually, it's called Christmas Cards Plus More.
Thank you.
Okay. This is Floral Dimensions, and this is where we are making additional flowers to add as, accents on your card. Rather than having everything be stitched on, some of these are 3-dimensional. They're extremely flat right now because it's been piled up with lots of cards on top of one another, but that's from Floral Dimensions. Okay, we've got one on top of each of these, so these are all dimensional. This is from the Fringe Frame wait a minute, I didn't tell you when. Floral Dimensions is going to be in August 15th and 22nd, at least tentatively. This is the Fringe Frame, and the Fringe Frame is going to be in June. This is beautiful fringe from Xandra Shaw and Mila, and here are two of them. Notice I've used black Peltex in the background here, fabric on the inside. This is from Sentimentally Yours. We are using our fabric as a focal point on these cards, and in this class there are 90 words that you can pick and choose to write your own sentiments. They are all of this font so that you can mix and match wherever you want. And these are just little butterflies from my little spile. Okay, again, we're letting the fabric do the speaking on these cards. And again, belated birthday wishes, you could write happy birthday wishes, happy birthday to you, happy birthday from us, whatever it is that will fit your occasion. 90 words that are very commonly used in all occasion cards. This class has nothing to do with holidays. There will be another class coming up for holidays, but Sentimentally Yours will be on July 18th. That's a one-day class. And by the way, Sentimentally Yours is the only class I have at the moment that comes with no kit. Okay, so you don't get a kit, you do get an extra large download. So if you should happen to decide to sign up at the last minute, you still can, because you don't have to worry about a kit coming.
Donna,
Yes.
there's also one scheduled for May 7th.
Yes, that's right. There is one on May 7th. If you
Good, because I signed up for that one.
And if you're ready, go ahead. I don't want to push anybody to sign up for something before they're ready. So I do have some that are farther out as well, that July 18th one.
And will the later classes in the year also start at your time at 10?
Yes,
Okay, I've got a schedule around work. Okay, thank you.
yes. Most of them start at 10 in the morning. Once in a while, they throw me in an afternoon, but not very often. So if you need anything, please contact me. If you've forgotten something or can't remember what I said and it's already past the time that you can see the recording, you're more than welcome to, email me, give me a message, and I will get back to you. I try very hard to look at my email every day, and I try to answer just as soon as I possibly can. Let's see. I think that is everything. Yikes. Thank you for sticking around for as long as you did. I so appreciate it. I wish you happy card making. I know you're going to be successful. Just use those instructions, follow them for a few cards until you've got it, in your memory, and then you can fly with it. All righty. Any comments? Anything anybody wanted to say?
Thank you so much, Donna.
You're welcome. There were a lot of things in the chat. I know I have a hard time reading the chat and doing what I'm doing as well, but I do appreciate all of your thank yous. And gosh, I hope I'll see you again. If you need anything, you just send me that message, okay? Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Great
Take
class.
care. Happy card making.